are Tyrians. We are many races, several professions. We practice the arts of combat as well as healing. We have foes, and we fight them without mercy. And it's time for us to claim back what is ours. It's time for us to claim back Tyria from the terror of the Elder Dragons. We can't go on living our lives in fear. We have to fight. We have to make a stand. This is our story.
Hello and welcome everyone to episode number 9 of the Chronicles of Tyria podcast, a Guild Wars 2 podcast for fans, by fans. This episode we're going to do a little something different. We're going to do a wrap-up of Beta Weekend number 3. I am here with Naveen.
Hello.
Dint cannot be with us tonight because he's working, and we actually did record this episode last night.
Yeah, we did, but there was some severe thunderstorms in my area and power outage. Podcast did not record. I couldn't save the file. I was very angry. I flipped the table.
And for those of you that are worried, Dint and I are both getting recording software, so we'll have double backup to make sure if this happens again, we don't have to delay the schedule by a day and also have to re-record it.
Yeah.
It's probably better because we kind of winged it yesterday and we were all over the place. We're hoping today with a little bit more structure, the whole episode will be better.
Yeah. Not like they could make the difference between both of them, but we can.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
Yeah. So, I guess, like we said, we're just going to talk about our impressions and comments and feedback and things we liked, things we didn't like, things we'd like to see changed or hope gets in before release. But first, we actually did get a question this week. So let's, I'll read that and then we can answer that and then we'll move on to what we planned on talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The question is from Morton, and he sent this to us via hosts at chroniclesoftyria.com. And he said, "Hello, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the knowledge that the Sylvari have from the dream. Is there any limit to it? Do we know the limit? If so, how can one properly roleplay a Sylvari with the knowledge they are supposed to have?
Mm-hmm.
Do Sylvari see everything in the dream, or just some things that some Sylvari see X content while others see Y content?" So, Naveen, I know let's dissect this whole question.
Yeah, because there's like
pieces.
3 different things in there.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on the knowledge that the Sylvari have from the dream? Is there any limit to it? And if so, do we know the limit? Let's answer that first.
I think that there is a limit, and like I mentioned to you earlier today, we were talking about that outside the podcast. Colleen, which is the Sylvari in Ghost of Ascalon, she says that she knows things from the dream, but she still is clueless regarding some other stuff. Like, she knows what an apple is, she just doesn't know what it tastes like. It's all things like that. So yes, their knowledge is limited, but up to certain points.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it is all, like, we had the knowledge that was given to the Pale Tree. We know a lot of it, and a lot of the impressions and things came from Ronan and from Ventari, because
Right.
they kind of cared for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious to see how far, and actually I don't think we know how far back their knowledge goes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they have knowledge of things before the Elder Dragons? I mean, they shouldn't, theoretically.
Mm-hmm.
And, before the seed was planted is when, their knowledge, I would assume, would start.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like you said, they know how to experience, they get these experiences, and you can kind of see this a little bit when you're playing in the Dream of Dreams. Like, everything's kind of this kind of transparent, ethereal kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you'll see, like, a Sylvari fighting some enemy, or, some Sylvari or Asura or whatever just around talking and doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, how you're imparted this knowledge. Like, they learn through the dream what a sword is for, that it's a weapon, that it's used to fight, and like, you hold it like this and that, such and such a thing, and they know the concept behind it, but they don't know how to do it. They know how to, I'm sorry, they know how to do it, but they've never experienced it.
Right.
That would be like, let's say you have never gone swimming before in your life.
I know
But,
how to do it.
well, let's say you looked up on the internet
How
all
to
about
swim.
swimming and the concepts and the science and the physiology and anatomy and stuff of how a human works while swimming, and you watched videos of other people doing it. Just because you did that doesn't necessarily mean you know how to swim. You know the concept and the theory behind swimming, but you still haven't experienced it for yourself.
Right.
So that is how I would look at the knowledge of the dream and things like that.
And I think you're spot on.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better.
Yay!
I think that's probably the best bet. And as the limit, we know once the firstborn were born, and then second born, and I don't know, whatever, be thrice born, whatever, and all the Sylvari since then, all of their experiences that they have are fed back to the pale tree to further their knowledge. So the firstborn knew only what the dream had given them, and they went out in life to experience all these different things. And then all of those experiences were relayed back to the dream. And then when the secondborn were born, they had all of the knowledge of the firstborn Sylvari. And as time went on and more were born, the amount of knowledge that the Sylvari have in the dream has just grown exponentially by the number of Sylvari.
Right.
But I guess the limit would be that we don't really know is how far back their knowledge goes. But I guess if you think about it this way, if one of the Sylvari goes out and spends all their time reading textbooks and history books, assuming that history is correct, that knowledge will then be imparted back to the dream, and then the Sylvari that are being born will have knowledge of that history. They won't be like seeing, quote, videos and images of it firsthand, but they'll have the knowledge of the history that, Sylvari X read in a book in the Derman Priory.
Right. So, what if they read something and that book is entirely false? That book gives false names and everything, and the Sylvari thinks that this is all true. Would that information be fed to the tree also, and then, spread through the dreams for other Sylvaris to learn?
I would think because you would take, if you think about it, we know Sylvari come out full grown, but they're like a kid.
Right.
When you're a kid, if your parents tell you something, you believe it.
Yeah, Santa and all that.
Yeah, you believe that without question because your parents told you that. And the pale tree, they also call it the mother tree,
Right.
and they consider it their mother. So it's basically like them. So the mother tree only gets the knowledge from its children, and it would tell you that from that book, and you would just assume that that was right because that's what you were told. What would be interesting then would be if another Sylvari read another book talking about the same thing. You know what? Let's think about it this way. We know it didn't happen because of Ghost of Ascalon and how that worked. But let's say a firstborn read a book about the faux fire from a human perspective, and it says that it was because of the clash of Magdir versus the Claw of the Con-Ur created the faux fire. Then another one reads a Char book that says King Adalburn knew he was losing and he smashed Magdir on the ground and caused the faux fire. Both of those same Sylvari reads both of those stories, and both of that information is transferred back to the dream.
Right.
What does the pale tree do? Does it say one's better than the other, or does it say I'm guessing it would say this is the human side of the story, this is the Char side of the story.
Yeah, make it what you think.
But if you only have one source, say, there's one textbook in all the land that has this one battle story in it, and it's totally wrong, but that's the only knowledge that the Sylvari have of it, then I assume they're going to think that that's what happened.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to think about.
Yeah. I'm really glad that that question was brought out, because now it can give us thousands of unanswered questions about, hey, maybe this is wrong, maybe this is right. You know, there could be so many things. Oh my God, now I'm full of ideas.
Well, and for your, I got another piece I want to mention after this, but as for your second part of that question, if so, how can one properly roleplay a Sylvari with the knowledge they are supposed to have? At this point, you would figure, based on everything we just mentioned, how you would roleplay a Sylvari. All common knowledge things that any race in the world would know, the Sylvari would know at this point in Guild Wars 2. The
Mm,
dragons are there, and here's how a human is, and blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
But you can pretty much role play that however you want.
yeah.
Because you can have, if you played in the beta, you know that all Sylvari share the dream, but they dream of different things.
Hmm.
Like your story options are the white stag, the green knight, or the moon. And those are three different defining options for you as a Sylvari character. And, anybody's could technically be different.
Hmm.
So, and I mean, there's the whole thing about wild hunts and, being sent on a mission from the Pale Tree and all that stuff, but we'll talk about that later. But, you could say that your Sylvari had, the knowledge of, you learned all of this things and, you learned one thing. And when you're role playing your Sylvari and you're out in the world and, make something up. I dreamt about this battle or this person or whatever and I believe this to be true. And then you could write a whole story and role play all along about your character finding out that what the tree had for that piece of information regarding that was wrong.
Mm,
And then it's your whole trying to find out what was right. And then that would also probably tie really well into what I was going to say next, but especially into like the Nightmare Court. If you think about it, you're supposed to believe everything you get from the Pale Tree is like the truth
hmm.
and figure things out for yourself, but pretty much what you're told is the truth. Well, what if you find out this one thing that you got from the dream is totally wrong? Would that make your character question the dream and the Pale Tree in general?
Or believe it. Mm,
Yeah, I mean, would you just be so blind faith that this has to be true, whatever these people say they're wrong, or wait a minute, is the Pale Tree wrong? Did the Nightmare Court have it right in the first place? Like,
hmm.
what? But what I wanted to just touch on briefly is we kind of mentioned this in the past, but we said that, whatever happens with the other Sylvari that go out into the world, their experiences are relayed back to the Pale Tree. And that's part of why the Nightmare Court does what they do.
Hmm.
That's why they like to torture and harm Sylvari. They wouldn't have any problem with torturing and harming a human, say, because their knowledge of harming and being mean and all these things to a human would get relayed back to the tree. But if they were to do it to a Sylvari, all of their hatred and evil, torture, meanness would get relayed back to the tree, but then also all of the negative effects that are on the other Sylvari they're inflicting it on would
Hmm.
be relayed back to the tree. And that's like twofold the negativeness because they want to break the tree of Ventari's principles, so they want to send all this kind of nightmare there to break the tree to make it its own being.
Right.
And what I was actually just thinking about would be really cool would be if there was a way or a mission or something where you're the Sylvari and your whole goal is kind of to alter and work with the Pale Tree to then break the Nightmare Court, like make it so that any of the things the Nightmare Court do cannot be relayed back to the Dream of Dreams.
Mm,
Like some crazy spell that like anything that totally disconnects the Nightmare Court Sylvari from the Dream of Dreams.
hmm.
And that way they can no longer relay any of their negative effects back.
Maybe that's going to be something we're going to see in game.
That would be awesome. I would love that.
Yeah.
But the only issue I just thought of now would be what, that kind of, I guess, goes against Ventari's tablet thing, certain principles, because if you were to do that, you could never reform those Sylvari and bring them back to the dream because you cut them off.
Right.
So you couldn't be like, no, the Pale Tree and Ventari are right, come back to the light side. And they could just be like, oh, okay, but you cut me off from the dream, jerk, so no.
Right.
But, we could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
So on to your second, like your last piece of your question, which we kind of already answered. Do Sylvari see everything in the dream, or just some things? That some Sylvari see X content while others see Y. And a lot of the general knowledge stuff they all see. But as there are specific defining characteristics, like we said, from specifically from your personal story. One Sylvari could dream about something, and like we said, there's that whole wild hunt aspect, which is this kind of mission that you're given from the Pale Tree to kind of go do certain tasks. And you learn that there's two Sylvari that had wild hunts in their dreams, I believe.
Hmm.
And one is Cade, and one is, I can't remember his name, but you meet him in the story. And Cade's was to fight the Elder Dragons or defeat Zaitan, I think. Or at least aid in the destruction of the Elder Dragons, and the other guys was to go to Or and like keep an eye and protect Or.
Okay.
So, that's something. So some people might see that, other Sylvari might not. Obviously, your Sylvari is going to have a wild hunt and dream of one of three things given the game mechanics, unless you really want to roleplay it and go completely different, which is fine as well. But game mechanic-wise, you have one of three options.
Right.
So, all right, well, thank you, Morden, for that question. You brought up a lot of good speculation and cool things for us to talk about. So thank you very much for that. And if you guys want to send us any more questions or comments, feedback, whatever, hosts at chroniclesoftyria.com is one of the best ways to get a hold of us. But you can also leave us messages on our YouTube channel at CoTPodcast. Also, drop by our forums at COT Forums. We have a podcast subthread where you can talk to us about that, or you can hit up our Twitter or Facebook or our Tumblr account.
We're everywhere.
And we have a Pinterest board too, but
Yep.
it's Pinterest. You don't really contact people through Pinterest. We have one anyway.
Yep.
We don't have a MySpace though, because really,
Seriously?
who uses MySpace? All right. Anyway, so on to the actual episode. So first, Naveen, what'd you think?
I was stoked. I was very happy because, Asura and Sylvari. So, yay! But the very first thing that I did was just skip the whole thing to just reserve my name so that people wouldn't take it. And then I recreated it, basically. I was really impressed with character creation, aside from one thing. And I think that's there was a lack of hairstyles, facial structures, and all that. When we were talking about it, like how many hairstyles do the humans or Norn have?
Oh God, it's got to be 20 at minimum.
Right? And I think the Asura and Sylvari have like around 8, 10 maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Not a
And
lot.
no, not a lot. And although you can customize some of the things, I think they could put way more into it. And I mean, one of them was just being bald, which, people don't usually do that.
Exactly.
But yeah, the whole thing, I was very excited, and then I created my Asura and the Sylvari, and unfortunately I didn't get to play much, but when I did, I tried to do as much as the personal story as I could, and I was very happy because in the Asura one especially, you see some Asuras, or were holograms of Asuras that are in Eye of the North. And I was like, oh my god, this is Gad. Wait a minute, he's in boxers. What? What's going on? The carrot pattern boxers type deal. But yeah, there was a lot of characters like that. And you would like see references to characters in Eye of the North. And oh my god. Yeah, I was really excited about that.
I actually want to chime in because I just pulled up some panes of character creation. Each one, like, pane window is 9, okay? So that means hairstyle and faces of the Asura and Sylvar, or at least for the Asura for sure, are 9. You have 9 face options and 9 hair options.
Right.
A human, you have at least three panes, I think. Human, Norn, and Char, I believe,
Oh yeah.
especially for hair. Well, at least human and Norn have at least 2.5 to 3 panes, so that's 18 or more. It's at least double
Right.
what you have. I think the Sylvari have a few more hair options than the Asura do.
Well,
They have maybe,
leaves.
yeah, they have maybe 11 as opposed to 9.
Hmm.
But yeah, a severe lack.
Yeah, I think they were lacking in that department, and although the skin patterns on the Sylvari and the editing of this, especially when you turn the light off. Oh yeah, that was another thing that they added. You can preview what your character looks like with the daylight and with night light.
Hmm.
And it's especially cool when you use it on the Sylvari because it's sort of like,
They glow, yeah.
yeah, they glow. It's sort of like a glow in the dark type deal. They
Yeah.
almost look toyish, but tropical plant-ish type deal. That was very cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can tweak the pattern, you can tweak all the colors, and like the brightness of the colors. So that was really cool.
One other thing I noticed, and that's not during character customization, but before I forget it, I find it very cool that when you would move as a Sylvari, you'd stop moving, and when you'd start moving again, there's that kind of glowish thing behind you going, and I think that's sort of like pollen.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be pollen, yeah.
Yeah, pollen. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, it's all those little details that make it so
Hmm.
special.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I was a big fan of Sylvari, just the character creation alone. And like I said, I liked like that was one of my problems. Like I wanted to make a male Asura,
Mhm.
but the hair options you could either have like an afro, you could be Vec from Guild Wars 1,
Yeah,
basically.
I didn't really agree with that one because everyone's gonna be like, oh, I want to be Vec.
And
So
then,
you'll have like hundreds of Vecs running around.
yeah, and then you could have basically I don't know, like cornrows or like bald. I mean, I know there were other ones, but like that's all I can remember. And we had this conversation when we recorded yesterday that I think kind of the afro for the Sura is almost like immersion breaking. Like it seems just really weird and out of place
Right.
to me. But that might just be me. But whatever.
Yeah, I
Any
wouldn't
case,
expect an Asura to have that kind of a hairstyle, but hey, who knows what can happen in, 250 years of
I,
evolution.
I guess, yeah. And again, like we said, it is still beta,
Yeah.
so there's a possibility we could see more options by the time the game launches.
Right.
So, and we're hopeful for that.
Oh yeah,
I,
definitely.
and like I said, I know that was something Dint wanted to mention as well. He told me he wanted to mention that he thinks that the Sylvari need multiple, more hair and more
Hairstyles.
face options.
Yeah, because that's one of the thing that ArenaNet wanted is for the characters to be, customized so that you don't run around playing with other characters that look exactly like you. And if you're gonna have 9 hairstyles,
Hmm.
granted there are tons of colors that you can choose from, not just like those 6 colors or whatever from Guild Wars 1, but it defeats the purpose. I mean, and everyone's going to pick the same hairstyle because the other ones look meh.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody I saw. I don't know how many Sylvari that had the kind of didn't look very human face, and I took this face myself where it kind of had like a V or like down around the eyes to like make a nose and like a line down.
Right.
And I picked that because your skin pattern when you had that face, that whole like V-shaped thing would glow.
Oh,
But a lot of people had that, and it was only a male Sylvari option, I think.
right.
They'd have that, and then they'd have like the mushroom cap head.
Oh, yeah.
Like I saw countless guys that look like that.
Me too. And my husband was actually like, "Oh my God, I could make a samurai. All I need is like a sword to go with it." And
Hmm.
I'm like, Do you know how many samurais, Sylvari samurais, are going to be running around with
Oh
you?"
yeah. Hmm.
That's crazy. It's like, okay, you have this huge mushroom head. How are you going to fit a helmet on there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I wonder. I wonder if they even allowed you to wear helmets.
Yeah, apparently it's just like hair and it shrinks,
Oh,
I don't know. One size fits all.
Yeah, I guess. But
And that was weird.
yeah, so we would like to have more options like that.
Please.
And I know Din also wanted to mention that as much as he ragged on all of the other races that weren't beautiful, aka not Sylvari, not human, he did make an Asura, and he really, really enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
he was like, but he really didn't want to say it yesterday,
Hmm.
but he did, and he wanted me to remind everybody that he did enjoy playing as an Asura.
Yeah. And it sounded a little bit like this. I wasn't gonna play an Asura, but I kind of did, and I kind of liked it.
Yeah, basically sounded like that. Yeah. But
Uh,
Sylvari will be his main character.
yeah.
So I guess while we're talking about the Sylvari, we can kind of talk about the Dream of Dreams. Naveen, did you spend any time? I mean, I know you made a couple of Sylvari. What did you think of the Dream of Dreams?
I thought it was interesting, but way too short.
Okay, yeah,
And it wasn't big. I thought the Dream of Dreams would have been a huge area that you
mhm,
could explore first and, then wake up from whatever. But there are bigger starter areas than the Dream of Dreams for ever
yeah,
races. I
that's
think
true.
that was lacking.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil too much of it for people who haven't played, but it has the most epic end boss.
Eh.
Really?
It looks cool, but I mean, I can defeat it in like a minute. I'm sorry.
But it's so much cooler than a hand elemental or a.
Oh, I know, but you didn't have Logan Thackeray next to you battling.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter 'cause he's a waste.
Shh, he's not
I had
Logan.
Cave, who's so much better.
It was just her spirit type thing.
Well, no, eventually she becomes solid.
Yeah, when you wake up.
No, no, she becomes solid in the dream
She
help,
does?
to help you fight. Yeah, she says the pale tree has granted me power and allowed me to be solid right
Oh,
before you fight the final boss.
well, see, that was me not paying attention because that boss was too huge.
Well, see, well there you go. But it was too epic, so you're
But
in
too
awe.
easy. Too easy.
Well, okay, well maybe they'll tweak it, but
They better.
I did want to point out when I was in the Dream of Dreams, it was the only starter area that I found weapons that dropped. Like, I know when you normally start, you have your one weapon, and I would always spend my time right at the beginning unlocking my first three skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always like, oh, I wish I could get another weapon before I go fight like the hand elemental and get my other skills so I'd be ready to go if I was a human.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was playing as a Sylvari, and I found like a rifle and a hammer and an axe. I was playing an elementalist, so none of that mattered.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it, which was really cool, and they were all blue items too. So they,
That's for a starter area. That's cool.
yeah. So, but what's interesting is I found all these weapons, and it's the shortest intro. And I mean, like I said, I couldn't use any of them anyway. But it's cool to run around and look at all of the like the little kind of dreamy looking things that are there. Like I saw some Orion brutes, as in like undead from Or, were there, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually heard one of the people on our forums mention something about like going to a place in the dream where you're not supposed to go. But I don't know what he meant, so I guess I'll have to do some more exploring in the dream next time.
You mean out the borders? You know how your map has this red-ish area where you're not supposed to go?
Yeah.
Basically, it's just like you're gonna run there, and there's a message popping out saying, you're not supposed to cross this in the Dream of Dreams. If you do, you're just gonna be ported back.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if that's what he meant or not.
Oh.
But it makes me, even if he was lying,
Mhm.
it makes me interested to explore all the little nooks and crannies of the Dream of Dreams and see if there's something I can find that's different.
Right. One
Um,
thing I noticed, like when I started in the Dream of Dreams, I was compelled to get the crap out of there.
yeah,
It's all this atmosphere of, oh my God, we're under attack. Help, help. You have to help me. Go there. Go. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Where am I? Oh, this is the Dream of Dreams. Okay. How do I wake up? Get to the boss. Beat him. Oh, that was it?
yep,
Oh, I'm naked. Where's my
yeah,
clothes?
uh-huh. Well, you did just get born.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not clothed when you're born.
Yeah, I
I
know.
mean, maybe Canadians are, but Americans aren't.
Yep. We're born Full on suit, winter suit.
Well, I mean, you need it up there because it's freezing. It's, snow and everything all the time,
Yeah,
frozen lakes and whatever.
igloos.
Yeah, exactly. Sleep in igloos. I don't know.
Anyways,
So yeah, that's kind of the dream of dreams. It's pretty cool. A little short, a little easy,
yeah.
but still
But the
cool.
boss did look epic, and it actually looked like a giant dragon plant.
Mm-hmm.
For those who didn't see or couldn't play, it it looked like a giant tree plant with wings, but made out of branches.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it was pretty sweet.
yeah.
So,
I wonder if that could have been like a champion of whomever,
yeah, maybe that'd be cool.
like the aura of the champion.
Yeah, I
Huh.
guess we'll find out.
Yep.
So, Naveen, you wanna, before we get too much into any of the specific stuff, I know you wanted to mention something about HD screenshots.
I am mad, so mad. Especially that, ArenaNet had this contest going. Now it's closed, though. Voting is tomorrow, I think.
I think voting was today.
Today? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
voting is today, right.
Hmm.
Yeah, for the screenshots, basically you take like high res screenshots and the coolest screenshots upon votes win. I wanted to participate in that, but I'm in Quebec, so I can't. But I still took some screenshots, but as I went to change my key in, the user preferences, I noticed that the high definition screenshot was gone. You cannot take high definition screenshots anymore. And the way that you have to go in order to do that is stop whatever the hell you were doing, put all of your stats up high for, to get the best graphics resolutions,
Hmm.
and then take your screenshot. So, let me get this straight to you. You're fighting. You want to get the coolest screenshot ever of you fighting this whatever. What you have to do is go in your settings, put them all the way up, continue to fight, hold WASD, your mouse, everything, and then you have to, get your pinky up to the little F6 key, which is my bind key for the screenshot, and, all just for one screenshot. And then if you're lagging, put back the stats wherever you were at and, continue on with your fighting and forget about the screenshots for now. It's
Hmm.
fine when you just want to take a screenshot of a landscape or, hey, this statue is pretty. Let me take a screenshot, put my high res, blah, blah, blah. But while in a battle is completely ridiculous.
Hmm.
Plus, you have to hide your user interface.
Yep.
So all of your UI, you have to go Control Shift H to hide it,
Hmm.
and then continue on with your fighting and everything. And it's complicated. ArenaNet, why? I was fine with just pressing one key to have a high definition screenshot, having like a 1 or 2 second lag, but know that my character is still fighting, in auto mode.
Yeah.
That is the most annoying thing ever in the beta weekend that I've experienced,
Yeah.
aside from the lag in World versus World. But that's another story.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. So the HD screenshots are gone. I really hope that they take them back.
Okay. Well, they took out that, but they did add in vistas.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on vistas?
I wasn't too impressed about it first. I was like, what's the point of having that? But then, when you get to play, you actually have, those mini jumping puzzles to get to the vistas, which is
Hmm.
cool in itself. When you get to the vista and you activate it, you see a whole, the area where you're at basically, and then you can actually take cool screenshots, and they make beautiful desktop background, by the way.
Hmm.
And they give you experience, and they count in your exploration thing. So basically, not only do you have like the points of interest and all that, but now you have the vistas. And yeah, I wasn't very excited about it first, but now I think it's a pretty cool idea. What did you think about them?
Well, for just I figure I'll start off like Naveen said. For those of you who didn't get to play or didn't take the time to figure them out, they're basically a glowing map that kind of looks like a waypoint,
Hmm.
and you work your way to it, and you hit F, and you get up there, and yeah, like she said, it takes a panoramic view, and like it's like a cutscene, but it's not a cutscene actually. It's all rendered with in-game graphics,
Hmm.
because like if there's other players or things around moving around, you'll see them moving while the vista's going on.
Yep.
So
Oh, I'm sorry to
no, go ahead.
interrupt you. There's actually something that was done on YouTube, and I'll link to it so that people can see. There's a guild, I can't remember what they're called. They took 50 chars. They took them to a diving board, and one of them hit the Vista panel, and then it made this cool animation of all the chars diving down from the board. That
Nice.
was pretty cool. I'll link to it, but anyways, sidetracked.
No, no, that's fine. Um, and like Naveen said, not all of them had jumping puzzles. Some of them were
Nope.
just kind of like you ran right to them and that was it.
Yeah.
But I'd say probably 75% of all of the ones that I came across were all a jumping puzzle in varying degrees of jumping puzzles. Some of
Hmm.
them were pretty easy. Some of them just involved you finding the right path. But some of them were jumping from like a 2x4 to a 2x4 that was sticking out of the side of a rock.
Yeah.
So you had no room for error. Like if you just over jumped it or held the forward key when you landed,
Hmm.
you would fall right off.
Speaking of which, have you seen the video of that one guy? I'm horrible with names, seriously. Who does this crazy puzzle jumping, and it's all, those little tiny pieces where you have to land and all that, and he does it like without error.
No, I didn't see that.
I have to link it, so I'll link to you guys too.
Yeah, all right, yeah, I'll have to check
Taking
that out.
notes.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like a 7 minutes video, I think. That's how long the puzzle is,
oh wow.
but he does it flawlessly. And
Hmm.
then there's a boss at the end, and then there's a chest.
Nice. That's pretty sweet.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean that was something and like we were talking about jumping puzzles and that's something I feel like they may have been there in beta weekend number 2, but I didn't see nearly as many.
The vistas or the jump?
No, jumping puzzles in
Oh,
general.
okay. No, yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't really pay attention to the jumping puzzles
Right.
last beta.
Oh, let me jump back to Vistas for a sec. Like
Yes.
Naveen was saying, you now have to fully explore an area. It's waypoints, skill points, heart quests, points of interest, and now vistas.
Renown hearts.
Renown, no, heart quests.
Because they have a name for it now.
No, they had a name for it since beta weekend number 1. But we
Uh,
just never said it.
no, it's heart quest.
Yeah, yeah.
Renown. Who
Uh-huh.
cares?
So, I like that they added that in for exploration's sake because I felt like I was finishing exploring areas way too quickly.
Hmm.
And adding this just keeps you in the game longer.
Yeah, that's true.
And there are vistas in world versus world.
They are.
So, that's a little something extra to strive for when you're running around not taking keeps or whatever else.
Hmm.
But, yeah, so on to jumping puzzles. Did you do a lot of jumping puzzles this weekend?
Nope. The only one that I did was for a Vista in World versus World, and I was getting hit by lag because they were working on the servers at that time.
I remember that one.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember. I was like, I'm all the way to the top, and you're like, no, and then you're kind of flopped on the floor and you're dead. What? No. And then I realized, yeah,
Yep.
okay, I'm dead. What is this? But yeah, I mean, beta, something you'd
Yeah.
assume they'd be doing.
Right.
So that's basically the only one that I've worked on, and that wasn't that much of a puzzle itself. It's just like 2x4s going around a tower, and then you hit the vista.
Hmm.
But that's about it. Did you do any puzzle jumping?
I did a lot. I fully explored all of the Grove, all of Lion's Arch, all of Keswick's Hills, all of Caledon Forest,
Did you sleep?
all of Divinity's Reach.
Avoid
Um,
Naveen's question.
and yes, I did sleep. Not a lot, but I slept.
Mm-hmm.
I averaged about 5 hours to sleep a night, so I didn't do too bad
Oh, that's not bad.
in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there were some naps in between at my computer that I don't even realize that I took. But yeah, I explored all of those areas, and I did quite a few in World versus World as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot, and by the end of it, I kind of figured out some tips and tricks to jumping puzzles and things that you kind of know from platforming games. Playing. Because I used to be a pretty big platform game player back on like Nintendo 64 and previous, back Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff I would use from platforming, it just didn't pertain. I mean, obviously, one of the hugest thing of recent platforms is you can't grab an edge; you just fall off.
Mm.
So this harks back to like Super Nintendo and previous platform games where you can't like, oh, I'm gonna fall. Oh no, Mario grabbed the edge. We're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
um, so, but yeah, I learned a couple of tricks. I learned that being an elementalist with Ride the Lightning makes pretty much jumping puzzles the easiest thing ever.
Flawless.
There's one in the dungeon in the Eternal Battlegrounds in World versus World, when it's the big one that everybody knows about, the underground jumping puzzle, where there's the traps that you can get to. I actually played with a couple of our other members, with Navary and Torin, and we were playing it together. It was cool. We went over and we did there's an invisibility fountain you can get,
Mm-hmm.
and we went and did that, and it makes you stealth and invisible for like 5 minutes.
That's
As long as
crazy.
you don't attack. But we trolled this members of the other server. We just followed them the whole way through, and they had no idea we were there.
Uh,
And then, like, our invisibility went away, and we killed them.
oh yeah? Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah, well, whatever. Points for the server, anyway.
Yay.
But there's a whole part where there's an Indiana Jones style, like, running down a ramp, and there's boulders coming. But the boulders only show up if somebody is further ahead of you at the boulder control station,
Hmm.
and they pull a chain, and it makes the boulders fall down.
Oh.
So, like, if you get ahead and you see, like, there's another from the other server doing that, you can pull that and then run them over with boulders.
That is so cool.
And then, like, when you get to the end of that, there's, like, 3 platforms you jump on, and there's a spike trap, and if you pull that, spikes shoot out of the bottom of the platforms you jump on and cripple and damage the people. Now, this is where Navary and Dan had a lot of trouble, and they were, like, having me drop static fields so they could blow up a minion to make an area swiftness to, like, get the jump.
Right.
And they had, they'd jump, and it was 1, 2, 3, and then the main platform. I would just jump up in the air and ride the lightning over all 3 platforms and land on the main one.
Oh, jeez.
And they'd be like, they were real pissed.
Yeah. Well, I hope that they don't tweak that skill
Just because of
just
that.
because of that. Yeah.
I hope not. I don't think they will. I mean, there's, like, the thing is, other classes also have things like that. Unfortunately, Necromancer is one of the ones that doesn't. Like, engineers have jump shot with the rifle,
Right.
where, you shoot at the ground and you put the target where you want to land.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
actually what I was playing.
Speaking of that, there's actually a jumping puzzle in Lion's Arch where you do that.
Oh, yeah?
Me and Navary were clearing out Lion's Arch, and we went to this one vista, and it's off on a rock that's far enough away, and it's clearly too far to make the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So he's sitting there trying to figure it out. I'm like, well, maybe if we give him swiftness, he can make it. And I'm like, well, I could probably ride the lightning, but it's so close that I'd probably go right over the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And he just happens to talk to the NPC that's right there, and he goes, oh, try this out or whatever, and he gives you a gun, a rifle, with only jump shot. And you use jump shot, you set up the green circle for the targeting on the area,
Mm-hmm.
and you just jump shot. Use that you shoot the ground and you blow up, and that lands you on the little platform to get the vista.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was one. The warrior has the leap and a lot of leaping skills, so they
Yeah.
can use that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Mesmer's blink, where they just teleport to target location, that doesn't work.
Mm.
But their portal does, where they can set down a portal at like one location and a portal at another location, and anybody that walks through it gets teleported, except for the Mesmer.
Hmm.
The Mesmer casting it can't do it. But I was talking to people on our forums this morning. I was like, all you need is two mesmers.
Right.
And one casts a portal and teleports the whole group, and then the other one casts a portal to get that last one. You could just move through the whole dungeon portal by portal
Hmm.
if you really wanted to. I mean,
Yeah.
waiting for skill recharge and that kind of thing.
Yeah. You create two mesmers just to go through jumping puzzles.
But, yeah. So, you get to the end of that, and there's a flame trap. But then, you finally make it all the way through this, and that's where the infamous dark room is, where there's torches you pick up on the way in, and it replaces your skills with torches, and it's dark, and you only have the light from the torches to see the rest of the jumping puzzle. Except due to all the lag and a glitch in the game, the torches threw no light.
Ah.
So you couldn't see anything. It was
Right.
pitch black. You couldn't see where you were going. And the worst part was if you fell, you couldn't get back out because you had to find the stairs to climb your way back out.
Oh,
So it was
jeez.
a lot of running around in pitch black darkness trying to find your way out.
Right.
So I turned my full screen gamma up all the way, so I had like a negative effect where like I had white on black.
Mm-hmm.
So I could kind of make out like water on the ground to know where the ground was, and then use that to find the staircase.
Oh, jeez.
But it was ridiculous. So I don't know if they fixed that, but I was kind of turned off for that for the rest of that beta. So I gave up on that jumping puzzle.
Huh. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're going to fix it.
Well,
We're going to see it in the future stress test.
hopefully, if there is one, I hope there is.
Oh, I'm pretty sure
I
there will
hope they
be.
do 5 more before the launch, so we can just to make sure the servers are stressed enough.
Yeah.
Not because I want to play, you know.
No. I mean, twice a week.
Yeah.
Just like 12 hours a day, maybe.
Well, I mean that best way to ensure server stability. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing it for you, ArenaNet.
You know what? All hours of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just give me unlimited access till launch, and
Yeah.
then continue that access because I'll have the game.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway. So let's see. What else do we want to talk about here? Well, like I said, I did a lot of exploring. So I did a lot of the Sylvari events. I think I pretty much participated in every single dynamic event of the Sylvari area.
Mm.
And they had 2 big ones that a lot of people didn't get to experience, or there was so much. And they were, big meta event webs that were kind of like the Shadow Behemoth in the human area, only they involved a lot more.
Right.
Like the Shadow Behemoth, you had to eventually kill portals and things, and eventually, it would say, oh, something about the Shadow Behemoth, and you would go fight and close out these portals and kill the Shadow minions, and the Shadow Behemoth would spawn, and you get a big chest. Well, there was one, and I don't know how you pronounce his name, but it's Xolotl. He's a Hylic. Zolotl? We'll call him Zolotl.
Ribbit.
Yes. And he was the sun god or the sun being or something.
Okay.
And I know a lot of the lore behind Hylic is that they worship the sun as their god. So, well, not as a god, but that's what they worship, the sun. And it stems from a lot of kind of primitive, I don't want to say primitive, but a lot of like older cultures that would worship not necessarily a divine being, but like that would worship, I don't know if it's pagan or what it is, where they'd worship like the seasons or the nature or a spirit. Well, they worship the sun.
Right.
And it involved 4 or 5 events where you would kill these great beasts of the sun god, or the sun Hylic, whatever he was. And one that I participated in 2 of these, and I managed the other 2 had been done, so then I managed to get into the event. But one was underwater by the pipe organ, which if you haven't seen the video of that, it's pretty cool. Where it would spawn a big chest if you played the Guild Wars 2 theme song on the pipe organ.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I wanted to link people to.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was ArenaNet that posted it first, but anyways,
Yeah, I don't know.
that dude went underwater, and there was this quaggan near humming a tune, and you find a organ over there, and you have to basically replicate the same tune, which ends up being the Guild Wars 2 theme music.
Hmm.
And when you do, there's this thing that opens, and then there's like a chest. So,
Yeah, I didn't even. I knew that it was there, but I didn't like. I heard the quaggin, I heard people playing the organ, but I didn't even bother doing it.
mm,
So I wish I had.
yeah, me
And
too.
this is
I
in
wonder what it was in there.
yeah, this is in the Caledon Forest in the Silvari starting area, by the way.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, one of the ones I did was right by there, and it was you fight Meechin, the great jellyfish,
Oh,
and you talk to a quaggin, and he turns you into a jellyfish, and you need to have a battle royale for jellyfish supremacy.
that's awesome.
And I tell you, I couldn't beat him without help of like a jellyfish army that amassed in there. We had a whole bunch of people, and we all, fought him. And a lot of it was dying because you would get killed by him, and then you would turn back into your human self, and he
Oh,
wouldn't fight you as a human. So then
oh,
you would just hold your force skill and heal your life back, and then go talk to the quaggin. But it would be a lot of people, or the Hylic rather. It'd be a lot of people like I'd go attack, and then I would die and swim away, and then somebody else would go, so his health wouldn't regen,
mm-hmm.
and it was just like a vicious cycle till we finally beat him.
Mm.
And I fought another one who turned into a drake, like a big, the alligator-looking drake.
Mm-hmm.
And I got turned into a drake, and he was a big drake, and I fought him, and I actually beat him, I think, almost one-on-one. And then what happens is when you beat all of the great gods, you fight this big blue Hylic.
Mm.
There's a lot we're calling him. And here, now you're fighting him, and things are going fine, you're kicking his butt, and then all of a sudden he jumps, and he pounds the ground, and every player there gets turned into either a hermit crab, a drake, or a moa bird. And we're
Nice.
not talking like full size moa bird. We're talking about like little baby moa bird and baby hermit crab. And then you need to fight him the rest of the way. And after a little while, that wears off, and then you get turned back into yourself.
Hmm.
And if you die, you get turned back to yourself, and then you come back.
Hmm.
But I had never figured it out. But I wanted to see if I jumped at the exact moment when he was doing the ground pound, if me jumping would have allowed it to kind of go past me and not turn me into it. But I never timed it right.
Hmm.
But either way, that was one of the big events that I know a lot of people saw, and they were trying to figure it out, and they didn't know what was going on, and they just gave up.
Hmm.
So that was a pretty cool event. And there was another one that was a lot more similar to the Shadow Behemoth. It was the Great Jungle Worm
Okay.
in the swamp. There's a swamp in the Caledon Forest. It's funny that there's a swamp in the human area, and it has a big event, and there's a swamp in the Silvari area, and it has a big event. And I kind of got here towards the end of the chain, so I can't actually remember what led up to that.
Mm-hmm.
But you fight a giant jungle worm, similar to the ice worm you face in the Norn starting area,
Mm-hmm.
only bigger. And then you beat it, and you get a big chest full of loot. So that was also pretty cool.
Cool.
And then, I found the runes of the unseen, which Naveen sounds like she wants to talk about that a little bit.
Oh no, no. I was
Okay.
just gonna say that was awesome. When
Yeah,
I saw your screenshot when you were like, "Hey Naveen, check this out,"
yeah,
and then it says "Ruins of the Unseen discovered." I'm like, what? And that's
yeah.
in Asuran territory, right?
Well, it's still Vari, but their territory kind of borders one another.
Oh, right, right.
And if you go in that area, it's nothing but Asura all over the place in there.
Oh, that's what got me confused. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was a Silvari area, but it had Asura in it. Which, I mean, you do run into Asura pretty frequently because Metrica Province. I mean, you can walk to Metrica Province through. Actually, that's funny. You can walk to Metrica Province and Kessex Hills through Caledon Forest, depending on where you go.
Hmm.
So you can just physically walk there if you want.
Hmm.
But yeah, for those of you who don't know, and we'll be talking about this coming up, I think next Monday, right? Is our episode on the Mersat?
I think so.
Yeah, and basically the Mersat were also called the Unseen Ones in Guild Wars 1,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what the White Mantle worshipped.
Yep.
But there was some kind of talking back and forth about how maybe the Asura tech, they got it from somewhere, they found these ruins, and, there was all this arcane magic, and where did it come from? and there's been speculation that it could have been, old Mersat ruins. And actually, if you watch Wooden Potato's most recent lore video, where he talks about Sol D'Alessio, he talks a lot about the Maguma jungle and where Sol D'Alessio was taken and everything to deal with the Mersat. And if you kind of put two and two together, the proximity to that to the Silvari or to the Asura area and the Silvari area, you could kind of be like, well, maybe that's where they took him, over to that area, south of Krita, and maybe that's their runes. And I mean, then you find the runes of the unseen. Kind of seems like those are tying together.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And for those who didn't listen to our Asura podcast, I think you mentioned that Mersat, if you put the letters around and stuff, could spell out Ratasum.
Hmm.
And in the word Mersat, you can actually spell out Asura also.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Mm.
So there you go. Um, so that was, I think they pretty much touched on. Oh, and didn't wanted to bring this up, and I can also talk on this as well. The Tengu
Hmm.
were very present. I mean, they're present everywhere when you think about it. Like you see them in pretty much all areas of the game, but they're very present in the Silvari home area in the Caledon Forest. There's a big bridge that leads to a big door and a wall, which leads into the Dominion of Winds, which we don't know anything about other than it's a big Tengu city.
Hmm.
And coincidentally enough, it's a big Tengu city, and all five races have their own big city. Maybe in the future, they're going to be the playable race. And like we've mentioned before, they're the only minor, quote, race that didn't get a blog post on them during all the racial weeks they did on the ArenaNet.
Hmm.
So maybe they didn't do that because they're saving all that stuff because they're going to be a playable race.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
I mean, they're spread all over the world like the other races.
I'd like to play a bird.
Yeah, they have they have their own home world established that we can't get access to. They're hooked up to their explorable area links into one of the other races areas, which seems to be a thing because you can walk pretty much. I know some of our members on our forums found a way to go from the Char homelands to the Norn homelands and from the Norn to the human, and then we found out how to go from the human to the Silvari and the Asura. So if you really wanted to Forrest Gump your way along, you could start in the Grove and work all the way to the Plains of Ashford if you wanted to.
Yep.
I mean, it'd be a long trek, and that's what waypoints are for. Also, Lion's Arch and the Asura Gates, but you could do that if you wanted to.
Mm.
So, there's a lot of groundwork laid for Tengu to become a playable race.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And especially if they do, I mean, I know all of Kantha, they're xenophobic and they pushed all the other races out of Kantha. But, and that's why the Dominions of Wind exists, because the Tengu left there and now they're here in Krita, or in Tyria rather. So, I mean, it's very possible that could be an expansion and we get to play the Tengu.
Huh.
So,
I would love that.
I would love that too. I think they're one of the most interesting races. I love their new character design. So I think that's probably going to be one of the next races we see.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So next, Naveen, you're not very. I'll talk about this a little bit as well. But let me get. You never played World versus World before,
Not before the last beta.
and this time you did.
And this time I did.
So let's
Because I got a little bit confused. I mean, my husband is more of a PvPer than he's a PvE-er.
Mhm.
And I am totally into the PvE, and I am scared of fighting real people. So, I mean, I'm not scared. I'm just very intimidated because half of the time I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Mhm.
So I decided, well, since World vs. World has some PvE aspects to it, then I'm going to try it.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I tried it when they were working on the servers and the lag was just ridiculous. And I kind of lost interest.
Mhm.
And I thought that it was, there was a lack of structure in there because you basically fight if you're like three people and you try to, hold some place against 80, it's impossible and it's boring to me. There's no I can't remember the word, but it's not rewarding. You
Hmm.
don't fight because it's epic. You just fight for survival because it's 80 against 3. And that and fighting you could shoot through doors and stuff, which is slightly ridiculous, especially since you have a sword. You could hit people through doors, and I wasn't very impressed with it, so I kind of lost interest very quickly.
Well, I can vouch for some of this because I played World versus World, and I think beta one of the previous beta weekends, and nobody was in it
Mm,
whenever when I played it, or maybe it was a stress test.
right.
But I played a decent amount this time, and I really like it for the same reasons that Naveen liked it in theory, in that it's not 5-on-5 structured PvP. You need to make your builds, to be perfect, to be able to deal with all situations. You spec yourself for damage dealing or, condition removal and have all sorts of utility skills designed for escape and, all kinds of stuff like that. And it's not that same, like, it's 5-on-5. If you screw up, that's a fifth of the team that doesn't work
Right.
because this is server wide and it's three servers, versus each other. And what I think part of the thing, Naveen, like she said, it was the lag.
Mm,
But at this point, when we're like, "Come, we need your help. We're trying to take this keep," it was three of us who had played World versus World before and fairly extensively this beta, and we're like, "Naveen, come help. We're not going to tell you what you're doing. Just get over here and use your skills and keep playing."
exactly. I logged on and went to Ventrilo. Hey guys, Naveen, get in here. What? Wait, what am I doing?
Yeah, so
I was kind of
we
pulled into it.
yeah, we probably should have done like a World WVW 101 for Naveen.
Well, it's
And
because also you have those blueprints and building stuff, and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? What am I grabbing supplies for? What the hell is going on, guys? No time to explain. Come. Okay.
yeah, so we'll do better next time.
Thank you.
Um, but yes, she was right. There was server issues, and I know the clipping through the walls was something that just wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. Um, but I'm trying to think. What else did you say you didn't like about? Oh, there's no. It's just fighting for survival. Well, part of the thing is they're using this kind of deal like this weekend and other in the first 2 weeks of the launch are going to be testing, and they're going to pair the servers because it's server versus server versus server, which
Mm-hmm.
aka world versus world versus world,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to pair the things better to be balanced.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say the three servers that are always wiping the floor with all the other servers, those three are going to be against each other, consistently going forward.
Yeah, to be fair and to have a challenge. Yeah.
Right, and that's what they're going to use the first 2 weeks is switch things up and reset the servers and figure that balance out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of it is, I mean, I don't know if you know this, Naveen, but depending on what you do in World versus World, you can get things like orbs of power and these things and put them in certain keeps, and that gives a boost to your whole server, and it even goes to PvE.
I did not know that.
Like, we could find this thing, and it could be like, all people on, let's say the red server get plus 20% magic find and, 10 extra vitality or something. I mean, that's probably a little low for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you can capture other servers' orbs of power and capture them for yourself as well. So you could potentially have 3 different boosts. And those are there, I think, until either the servers reset or until they're taken back.
Hmm.
So that's something cool. And, it's kind of pride for your server a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, hey, we're not getting we're not getting destroyed by this other team. And I mean, a lot of it should, you would need more people there, and you can, use money to upgrade. You take a keep and you claim it for, say, Chronicles of Tyria, which we did a couple of times. The three of us that were playing World versus World. And then, you can spend money to upgrade your keep, like upgrade your walls and your doors, and put boiling oil on the top to pour on invaders that are trying to come in. And, put ballistas and arrow carts and things up on the top, to kind of ward off defenders. But to really make it work, you need to have a decent sized group, or even like a pickup group, to be able to be like, okay, so and so, you three or four stay here and defend this keep. We're gonna go take the supply camp so we can get supply to keep building, our siege weapons. Well, if you all leave, if you take a keep and set it up and then leave all of you, then the enemy team is just gonna come take it and they're not gonna have any resistance.
Right.
Especially if they have a battering ram to take down the door. But I like it because it's fun. It's still PvE related. You are boosted to 80, but your skills and traits are still based on your PvE character level.
Right.
So, I mean, you can level up in World versus World, and any of the loot drops that you find
Or used to keep.
are yours to keep, and they're to your level.
Right.
But, your racial skills still count, which is also cool. And like I said, there's vistas, there's skill points, there's jumping puzzles, points of interest, waypoints. You can explore World versus World, and there's different World versus World maps. And there's the big castle at Stone Mist and the Eternal Battlegrounds, and all this cool stuff. So I think with the proper introduction to it, it would be a lot more interesting for someone like you, Naveen.
Yeah. I guess I'll read about it and, to basically know what the hell I'm doing. And probably I am going to wait for like the first 2 weeks after game release so that I get to play on a server that's balanced.
Mhm.
I mean, in the world that's balanced against others.
Right. And here's something else that I want to bring up too is you get a decent amount of experience for capturing a keep and taking a keep and holding it for your team. So what a lot of people were doing in beta weekends were like first thing they'd do when they logged on was go straight to World versus World and start capping keeps for their team to get all the experience while there's not a lot of people in the game or people are doing personal story stuff. And then after they capped, like say they ran around and capped almost all of them, then they would jump to the personal story because they'd get that experience boost and then go do PvE.
Right.
Which I may consider doing come launch. Just run in, get like a Zerg of people, and let's go cap all of our points. And then, all right, now let's go back and do exploration and PvE. But we just got, say maybe a level or two of experience from doing all this stuff.
Right.
And then, you know what? If we come back and we're dominated, then we could try to take a keep back and have some fun with it.
Right.
But, we'll try to do that. So that, I think, would be cool. But, actually, and speaking of World versus World, come this Thursday, on our Thursday episode, we're going to be doing another interview, and we're actually going to be focusing a lot on World versus World. We're going to be talking with the head of Guild Wars 2 World versus World.
.com.
Yes. And that is David.
Yep.
I don't know his last name, but his first name's David. We're going to be doing, our typical interview where we talk, about him and his community of, GW2WVW.com. But rather than do a lore piece like we normally do, we're actually going to have him help us talk about World versus World.
Yeah, so I'm pretty psyched about that.
Yeah, it's going to, describe what it is, what it's like. For anybody that's intimidated about it, that's a PvE player, he's going to go over that and, maybe some tips and strategies and, ways to break into it and, things that you should do when you're first playing or like on launch to get experience. Let's go do this first. Or, things like that. So, but yeah, that'll be more on that on Thursday. All right, so that's our World versus World piece.
Yay.
Well, I guess this is kind of something. I don't think you dealt with the gem store at all, did you, Naveen?
No, I didn't really want. I mean, I checked out the stuff that were for sale, and that's where I found out that there was a preview window.
Yeah.
But no, other than that, I didn't purchase anything or anything. I just noticed that my gems were at zero, and I was like, "Aw."
Well, actually, while you mention that, before I talk about that, you want to talk about the preview window?
Sure. Well, I mean, it was really cool. I find like finally, what your character looks like because a lot of it, PvE and stuff and gathering new armors and I like my character to look nice.
Hmm.
And sometimes you're like, "Oh, what? That item looks so cool." Like not look, but the stats are great. I
Hmm.
might want to purchase it. And then you purchase it, spend a bunch of silver or whatever, karma points, and you realize, oh, that's what it looks like. It doesn't even fit with the rest of my stuff. So, what the preview does is when you get a weapon or a armor piece, or even if you want to preview like those aviator glasses,
Hmm.
you just right click and hit preview, and it's going to pop up a window of your character and what it would look like with whatever you're buying.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Hmm.
Because I remember in the last beta weekend, not number three, but beta number two, where they give you a whole bunch of gems, I wasted it on a cook outfit,
Hmm.
and that was a waste of my gems. For me. I mean, other people might have liked it, but I was like, oh, that's it? Oh, this sucks so
Well, the
much.
only thing good about the cook one is it gives you the spatula,
Yeah, but
which
that's.
let which lets you make the roast pig and all that stuff.
Yeah, but that. Eh.
That was fun. But whatever, fine.
Yeah, if I would have been able to preview it, I would have been like, meh, yeah, I'll go with the pirate maybe.
Yeah, that's fair.
And speaking of previews, you could preview what they had on sale also. And that was the beanie, the red beanie.
Yeah.
So I previewed that and I was like, oh, I'm glad I didn't get that.
Yeah, and that was something that they did do. They switched out. At first, aviators were on sale, and then it was the beanie, and I don't think it changed from the beanie, but it is worth mentioning that Arena is going to do promotions and sales on things, and they'll change every so often. So
Mm.
that's another way for them to kind of keep interest, up. And I know a lot of people. I don't know if it's going to be myself included, but I know I want to get things like extra bank and bag slots and extra character
Character
slots.
slots, yeah, for me.
But a lot of people are going to be like, well, oh, it's on sale. I'll get it now. I wouldn't get it normally, but it's 20% off. I'll
Yeah,
buy it now.
yeah.
Um, so
I
that's a
did that
really
with costumes in Guild Wars 1.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to generate interest. And I mean, I really like the concept of it. I did buy some gems myself because I wanted to have them when the game launched in case they had any issues with purchasing in the gem store.
Hmm.
I'll have them already.
Right.
Because the whole thing was if you bought them in this beta, you got them to play around with, but then come launch, you got them refunded.
Yeah.
Which I used to buy a lot of dye, and which actually is worth mentioning now that dye is tradable again.
Yay!
So for the
So
first
happy.
time, you can trade your dye on the trading post. You can mail it to other players. You can sell it, I believe, too.
Yeah.
So
You can actually craft it now if you're a cook.
yeah, which kind of makes no sense to me. But why a cook could craft dye,
Of course.
food coloring, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's natural food coloring. Straight out from carrots. What kind of
Yeah.
shade of orange do you want? 50 shades of orange.
Oh, God. Um, but yeah, so I did like the gem store, but didn't I had this issue. You can't, or this isn't the gem store. I had this issue with the gem store. There was the gem to gold conversion, which they have. If you
Mhm.
have gems, it's not even the gem store really. It's the conversion tab where you can convert gold to gems or gem to golds. And I had bought all of the dyes that I wanted, and I didn't really feel like buying anything else. So I said, well, let me convert, the last few things to gold, and then I'll go on the trading post and buy, a bunch of scraps of jute and craft myself some armor.
Hmm.
Well, I did the change. I was going to convert 200 gems to gold. And I think I did 100 once and it worked. So I was like, oh, let me convert 200 more.
Hmm.
And then it said failure. It took my 200 gems away,
No.
failed, and didn't give me any gold.
What?
and I tried it several other times in smaller amounts just to be safe with like 50 gems,
Uh-huh.
and like I don't know, maybe say 5 out of 10 times it worked. Uh,
Okay, so half the time it would just fail.
yeah, and half the time it would fail, and half of the time it would take those gems and not give me anything.
Man.
Sometimes it would fail and nothing would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would just fail.
Well, good thing it just resets upon
Yeah,
game
and I'm
launch.
glad it's gonna. And I sent in a bug report that said, I ordered gems and I tried to trade them to gold and it failed, but I still lost the gems but got no gold.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that didn't I both had a problem with, which was the trading post in general. You can't preview anything from the trading post.
Oh.
So if you go in to buy some armor from the trading post, you have to just buy it. You can't preview it because there's no preview window for that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure they'll fix by launch, but
I'm pretty sure because that's a big thing that players are going to use.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So I think we wanted to touch on Naveen. I'm gonna have you talk about the Asura racial skills because I know you had a couple of them, or one of them at least.
I only had one of them. I only unlocked one, and that was the radiation field.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's yeah,
Yeah.
radiation field, and what it was is that you were throwing this Asuran-looking type box that had a gem. It was all glowy, and it spawned a radiation field that caused poison, and I think it was confusion,
Weakness, I believe.
weakness. Oh, but the main thing was poison and weakness. And if I remember correctly, yesterday you told me that it was for 3 seconds each, right? On
Yes.
each condition. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a pretty cool looking racial skill. But other than that, I think, it being a racial skill, it's a special skill. Just high it up a little bit more than 3 seconds, please.
Yeah.
It's not something that I would use. I used it just to be a show off, basically, because people were like, "Whoa, Naveen, what did you
Yeah.
just use?
That's what I said the same thing.
What was that?" I said, "That's my skill. That's me all there.
Yeah.
The whole 3 seconds of it."
Yeah, and it's funny because that cost you 3 skill points to get that.
Yeah.
And for 1 skill point, you could get the Asuran racial, which was Pain Inverter. And it's somewhat similar to the Guild Wars 1 skill in that it causes confusion on enemies, nearby enemies, and it gives your teammates, or maybe it's just you, retaliation. And that's 5 seconds each on both of those. For those of you that don't know, confusion is a condition that deals damage to each time one of your foes uses a skill of any kind, it causes damage back to them.
Mm-hmm. So it
So
makes
that
sense to be called Pain Inverter.
right, so that happens for 5 seconds, and it gives you retaliation, which is whenever someone attacks you, any of like the damage that hits you, some of that, a percentage of that is reflected back to them. So anytime they use a skill, they're taking damage. So if they're using an attack skill, say, against you, they take damage for using the skill, and retaliation reflects some of that damage, or sends some of that damage back to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to be confused with reflect, which just reflects the attack right back at the attacker.
Right. But all that for 1 point and for 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
For 3 points, you get the radiation field and doesn't do much.
Yeah, I feel like they really dropped the ball on the Asura racials because the other one they have is Technobabble, and that's 6 skill points, and all it does is daze target foe for 2 seconds.
2 seconds, come on.
Uh-huh. All it does is, well, what it does is it interrupts whatever they're doing, and it prevents them from using skills for however long it is. So for 2 seconds, your opponent can't use any skills.
You'd think an Asura would be smart enough to make it longer than 2 seconds.
I mean, I get it to some extent
For
because
6 points.
there is no attack per se, like there was in Guild Wars 1 where you had attack and then your skills.
Uh-huh.
So like if it disables your ability to do anything basically for 2 seconds. Yeah, because your only attacks are 1 through 0.
Right.
And all of those are shut down for 2 seconds.
Hmm.
So I guess maybe if it was longer than 2 seconds, it might get a little broken.
Right.
But I don't know what any of the other skills that cause daze are. But if they're longer than 2 seconds, then the server's got jit. Oh, look at this. Here is. Oh, that's an elite skill for a guardian. That's 3 seconds, but it dazes 10 targets.
No, that's not
Um,
bad.
no, it's part of the Tome of Courage. But there's like here's some weapon skills for the guardian and the warrior that's stunned for 1 second, and their weapon skills.
Hmm.
Same thing with some of the ranger skills. Elementalists, they have one that dazes for 2 seconds, and it's a focus skill.
Hmm.
So like it's a weapon skill, and it dazes for 2 seconds. It does 239 damage, and it's a combo finisher.
Well, that's not bad.
And it's an area of attack spell.
Hmm.
But like, I mean, that's a weapon skill for an elementalist, and this is a racial skill that you have to spend 6 points on.
Yeah.
One here and here it is, a warhorn skill. One of the warhorn skills for the necromancer, Wail of Doom, is dazed for 2 seconds in an area of 600, a range of 600. So in all people in the area.
There you go. Yeah,
So
I'm pretty sure they're going to tweak a little bit of the racial skills.
yeah, I would have to think so because that's. I mean, I just looked up, just casually looking through the list of skills that daze, and there's several ones that are tied to a weapon
Mm-hmm.
that daze for the same amount of time as Pain Inverter.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. But anyway, their elite skills, they have three. They're all golem related. There's Summon 7 Series Golem, which summons an attacking golem for you.
Mm-hmm.
Summon D Series Golem, which is a defensive golem, and Summon Power Suit, which is a suit that you physically enter.
Ah.
And that, I believe, is like the golem that you can summon in World versus World, as well as the hazmat suit thing that you can buy from certain merchants in PvE.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a hazmat suit. I think you can get it for karma points for certain people. And like you double click in your inventory to create like a hazmat suit that you can enter.
Oh, that's cool. Does it have
I,
any stats to it? Does it add you, like, do you get a new skill bar?
yeah, because you're inside like a golem thing.
Right, so you
Let's
throw
see
your
if
fist around.
here you go. Hazmat suit. An environmental weapon attained by spending karma at a karma merchant. When used, the character will enter a hazmat suit and use its skills. That grants the user about 200 extra skill points. The suit lasts until the health of the character wielding it drops to 0, at which point the character is down, or until voluntarily exiting the suit by using leave suit.
Ah.
It gives you Gatling fists, which shoot a barrage of missiles.
Mm-hmm.
Launch fist, where you shoot your fist off to do damage.
Mm-hmm.
There's the leave suit, like we said. There's punch, which is just a regular. That's your one skill, I believe, just a punch.
Mm-hmm.
Self repair, which is engage the hazmat's self repair mechanism to heal it,
Right.
and it heals 200 health per second. And whirling assault, which is where like you see that in some of the Asura video, where the upper part of the golem just spins around in a circle.
Right.
And that is basically, I think that's what the Asura racial is it's basically that.
Huh.
So you can summon that as one of your elite skills.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how, I mean, you can get it from an item, so I don't know how useful it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I'm not sure how the suit looks or anything, but I do know that there are like 2 golems that I was able to manipulate, basically. There was one in a personal story, and it was huge to a point where, I mean, my resolution on my computer is pretty huge, and the suit itself was covering more than half of the screen.
mhm.
So I didn't see much of where I was going and what I was
Yeah.
doing. So I was like, yeah, maybe they should tweak that a little bit. Just like put the camera view a little higher or something
Mhm.
when you enter the suit. And there's also a renown quest in Radasum, not Radasum, but just outside Radasum,
Mhm.
where you have to get in one of those suits to like repair other things and like other golems, like mini golems.
Mhm.
But those are the only 2 suits that I've been able to wear.
Hmm. Well, I guess we'll have to see more about that when the launch happens.
And the second suit was pretty small. It's like the height of an Asura.
Oh wow, okay.
The first one in the personal story is way too huge. I mean,
Yeah,
it's fine, but I mean, if I could see something, it would be better.
yeah,
Speaking of seeing, another thing that I've noticed they still haven't changed is the first person view.
that's true. Yeah, that's not in yet, and there's no observer mode for PvP either.
Oh, see?
Yeah. But they said that might not be until after launch, at least the observer mode.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyways, I kind of sidetracked it there.
that's okay. And the next thing I was just going to talk about was the Sylvari racial skills.
Hmm.
They have a racial healing skill called Healing Seed, which drops a healing seed like in the area of you, and it does some initial healing, and I think it gives health and definitely regeneration to allies nearby. But I did not try it out, so I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, they do have one of the best skills, in my opinion, which is only a one skill point called Grasping Vines, which is a ground targeted skill that shoots vines out of the ground that immobilizes and damages your foes, and this thing is epic.
Yeah, so I heard. There was a bunch of vines popping up wherever I was going, and people were like, "Wow, that is so cool! Like, this is the best kill ever."
It's one of the best control skills, and I'm going to call it out as one of the best racial skills out of all of them.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, it's a utility skill, it's only one skill point. And, I mean, you talk about being an elementalist where you have all those huge AoE bombs.
Mm-hmm.
You do this, and the enemies can't move. I mean, if you're a staff elementalist, you drop this, followed by static field, which stuns them,
Mm-hmm.
and then meteor shower and a few other AoE bombs, and
Jeez.
they're done. Like they're not getting out of there alive.
Yeah, Siren and that tweaked that skill big time.
No, leave it exactly like it is, Arena. It's perfect.
Anyways, for PvE, it's cool.
Oh yeah, I mean,
PvP is totally unfair.
well, I mean, for structured, you can't use it because you can't use racials.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But for world versus world, it was great. Like people are like trying to run away from you, and you shoot it ahead of you, and then you stop them. Or you're running away from people, and you like shoot it behind you, and then they get stuck, and you keep running. But anyway, one of their other skills was their other utilities was Seed Turret, and this you use a lot in the single player, and this is what Dent was referring to as Plants vs Zombies,
Mm-hmm.
which it basically is because you're Sylvari fighting undead, and it's kind of tower defensey, where you summon these seed turrets that auto attack the enemies. Now, this skill I didn't really like.
No?
No, you summon one seed turret and it does like low damage, and I mean the only thing it was good for was if I shot it in front of me, the enemies focused on it
Right.
and destroyed it while I could stand back and do damage.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't that good because it's only one, and in the single player you have multiple, and having a bunch of them gives you a decent damage boost,
Right.
which actually ties into their elite skill called Take Root that they have, which
Okay.
basically does what I was just saying. You can become immobile and you take root, essentially put roots in the ground where you are. But while you're doing that, you become immobile, but you can't take any damage while you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and that lasts for about 3 seconds. But you shoot out a bunch of seed turrets, so it summons a bunch of those to fight for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that is better. They have Summon Fern Mastiff, which I just assume is a bigger version of a Fern Hound, almost like a Hound of Balthazar, except for one.
Mm-hmm.
It lasts for a minute, though, which is pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
It's immune to conditions, and it does poison and bleed damage.
Hmm.
And the big, huge mind blower is Summon Druid Spirit.
Oh.
Yeah, and this is huge because there's been all the speculation that the Sylvari are somehow linked to the Druids,
Mm-hmm.
which were in the Maguma jungle, very, very close to the Tarnished Coast. And, once the Pale Tree was revealed to have like a spiritual form that you could commune with, like very similar to the Druids in Guild Wars 1. And now there's a summon racial skill, or summon Druid Spirit, which summons the Druid in the form of an ancient oak heart, which, I mean, there's your connection right there.
Yep.
And this applies regeneration to allies, will entangle foes, and periodically will draw conditions from yourself and like other allies,
Hmm.
and this lasts for a minute. So it doesn't actually fight, like physically fight, but it will immobilize foes, heal, and take conditions away. But yeah, it's a druid.
Yep.
So I think it's almost safe to say that the Sylvari are somehow their origin is linked to the druids of Guild Wars 1, which is also relatively close to where Ronan found the seed and planted the Pale Tree seed in Guild, in between the two games. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was it on racial skills. I guess we just wanted to mention briefly. Wooden Potatoes did a video on some super secret boss battle thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it was about like this ridiculous meta event that was crazy. It was all these things. You had to find a secret key and go through all these different rooms and charge it with different energies to fight this like super secret boss.
Yeah, and
And
I'll link it so that people can directly go to it.
yeah, it was pretty cool to watch just to see like this sheer scale that ArenaNet puts into these events.
Hmm.
Like it's definitely worth checking out.
Hmm.
I also give you an idea of like what to look forward to when game launches and you want to play in Asura and you want to play some cool events.
Right.
Um, I guess real quick, I wanted to talk about Keg Brawl, which was in this beta. I did not play it.
I didn't try it either.
I watched some pretty cool videos. I know I saw on Tales of Tyria, and more specifically Kai from Tales of Tyria. It's Kai Dream on YouTube. Her channel, she had a lot of videos of it.
Hmm.
And basically, what I can tell, I mean, obviously it's a mini game, but it's essentially sort of like rugby. Whereas, like, if you get tackled, the ball, which would be the keg, goes down and can be picked up by anybody else. I know you can boot the keg like ahead of you to get, move it further down the field, and pick it up, and you can punch and kick and tackle people.
Hmm.
And you also can do like an elementalist type ground pound thing where the earth shakes, so that's not really realistic. Um, but what's cool is you bring it to the other side to score your points. But eventually, I heard that other multiple kegs will start spawning.
Oh,
So like you could be like going and fighting over this keg while somebody else just sneaking around, bringing other kegs back and getting points.
right.
And this is like a thing. And there were a lot of people on Tales of Tyria. They were talking about, oh, there should be an observer mode for this, and this should have like a leaderboards, and like how cool would that be?
For
And
keg?
yeah, for Keg Brawl. Well, there's going to be. They were talking about like Polymock as well, and how
Hmm.
we saw the Polymock arena
Hmm.
that it exists in the Asura world. You can't get into it, but that pretty much solidifies that Polymock is back.
Yeah. I heard, was it you told me that there was some speculations about how your mini pets from Guild Wars 1 that you dedicate to the Hall of Monuments could potentially be those pieces in Polymock Arena.
I don't. Yeah, I mentioned something about that. I don't know if it's Guild Wars 1 related,
Ah,
but I think it's definitely. I hope and I think it's going to be linked to mini pets. Maybe the mini pets you get in Guild Wars 2, or like the ones you get from the Hall of Monuments.
oh,
But I
right.
think it would be cool if rather than doing Polymock pieces like you did in Guild Wars 1,
Uh-huh.
that your mini pets would be your Polymock pieces.
Right.
And especially if a lot of people are saying like, what if they hope it's like the card game from Final Fantasy 8 and 9,
Mm-hmm.
where like you have there's strategy involved, and all the different pieces and or cards in Final Fantasy would have different powers.
Mm-hmm.
And this way, like stupid mini pets that you would never like. Why is this even a mini pet? This is dumb. Nobody wants this, but maybe it's got like really cool powers in
Right.
Polymorph. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be pretty cool.
Yep.
So I hope that that's how it works. If it's like the old game, then I'm going to be kind of disappointed, because you already have the mini pets there. So,
Yeah.
Naveen, did you want to talk about the racial armors and stuff?
I didn't actually test them. That's the thing. Like, and I'll link it also as well because some people, I think it's Casey on the forums that found all the. Oh no, it wasn't the racial armor. It was something else.
No, I think it was racial armor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the female and male screenshots of the armor, like light, medium, and heavy?
Yeah, that was her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had found a while back the starting armor that you get in the opening window
Mm-hmm.
of like when you're in character creation. But yeah, she posted that link, and it actually shows that a lot of those armors you see in character creation are like the high level armor for the given races, because they said there was armor for all the dungeons basically.
Mm-hmm.
You can get, there's I guess three different tiers maybe, or no, I'm sorry. There's light, medium, and heavy armor. Obviously options for all however many dungeons there are. What is it? 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 dungeons. So there's a set of armor for each armor class in each of the dungeons,
Right.
and that's covered in there. And then they brought in the racial armor, which I believe you can find for varying degrees of gold if you were to just look through, say, any one of the starting towns.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 different levels of this. There's level 35 armor, which costs 1 gold apiece. There's tier 2 armor, which is level 60, and that costs 10 gold per piece.
Oh, per piece? Wow.
Uh-huh. And then there's level 3, or tier 3, which is for level 80 armor, and that is 20 gold per piece.
Wow.
And that, it's based on, caster type profession, and it's on male, female, and then light, medium, heavy armor.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those are the ones you see in the character creation. But from what I can tell, the highest level armor, the level 80 armor,
Mm-hmm.
that is what all of Divinity or Destiny's Edge have.
Oh.
Like the level 80 heavy male armor is Logan Thackeray's armor.
So basically, if you create a character that looks like him, you could actually be a twin of him.
Hmm. And the level 80 medium armor is Air's, and the level 80 Sylvari armor is Cade's armor.
Mm-hmm.
And you can very much see, like in the video or the link that she posted, the level 80 Asura armor, like it doesn't matter what the Asura looks like, it looks like Zoja based on the armor, because her
Oh,
hat leg thing pretty
yeah.
much is like, oh, that's Zoja.
Yeah, and I really liked her armor, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, and then the other one was Ritlock's. But they also did a lot of the weapons as well,
Mm-hmm.
which, if you don't know, there's dungeon-related weapons, like there is dungeon-related armor.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also cultural weapons that you can buy for karma points in all the major cities. And I don't remember if they're based on... I don't think they are level-based. So then, you'll find, say, whatever it is, like Ascalonian or whatever it would be. Let's see. I guess it's Seraph, Peacemaker, Wolfborn, Adamant, and Warden are the different ones for each of the main races.
Hmm.
And they have a lot of cool different, things. And we'll post the link that she found, and it shows all of the different, I mean, obviously if you don't want to know, don't view it.
Yeah.
For spoiler's sake. But there is, and this is all thanks to the preview window that they added. We can see all the cool epic armor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth checking out if you are interested in that. If you want to have it be a surprise, obviously save it and wait for release. And I guess one of the last things we just want to touch on quick is they talked about a lot of skill and trait tweaks to the game. And I know a lot of us were like, I don't see anything. That I didn't see any major differences.
No.
And yeah, I mean, I played an Elementalist. I didn't see much of anything change.
That's the thing, like, because I had not touched anything else other than the Elementalists, aside from the last beta, so I didn't really notice any changes. Because I honestly didn't pay attention to the other professions.
Yeah.
So,
The only thing I think I may have noticed for the Elementalist was the water staff skill
hmm
now does healing as well as damage. Which I don't think it did. It may have done it, and I just didn't know. But I know they tweaked the mine kit for the engineer, where it used to be a kit that had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were skills, were mines. You'd throw a mine.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's it's a skill, and the skill, like say you put it at whatever the utility skill button you have set up. Let's say 7. 7 is throw the mine, and then 7 again is detonate the mine. And the tool belt skill, the F skill, like F1, 2, 3, 4, that is throw 5 mines around you, and then it turns into detonate those mines.
Ah.
I know Torin mentioned that they changed the 5th flamethrower skill. Used to be they had like a push out and a pull in skill using the flamethrower.
Mm-hmm.
Now the pull in skill was replaced with a dust cloud from the flamethrower that blinds nearby enemies.
Right.
And I know the Guardian, the staff had one of the skills was a staff skill that drew in all conditions off of nearby allies and turned them into and gave you temporary boons.
Mm-hmm.
That has been replaced because that whole skill effect is now a skill, a shout called Save Yourselves, and they added in a new skill which is called Empower, which lets you channel and give, which is actually pretty huge, 6 stacks of might for 12 seconds to you and all nearby allies, and at the end of that it also heals.
Wow.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's channel skill, so you can't move while you're casting.
Right.
But still, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice, I think, on the trait side, I didn't really know too much outside of the Elementalists, which I believe most of their traits stayed the same. Although I do think some of the Guardian traits have been tweaked. But like I said, if you guys have any other major glaring differences between what you saw in Beta Weekend 2 for either traits or weapon skills or utility skills for any of the races that you played, please send them to us so we can just see, and then speculate whether we thought it was a good change or a bad change.
Mm-hmm. That'd be nice.
So, yeah, please send that to us if you have anything.
Yep.
And the last thing, Naveen, you want to talk about our new server?
Oh, yes. We switched servers because our server that we originally were on got deleted from the list. So we decided, well, we're mostly about role-playing and, your character's story and all that, so we'll switch to the Tarnished Coats server, which is the unofficial role-playing server. I had a blast.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I could literally just be standing there in Radisum and be a, cynical Asura rambling about stuff, and I would have someone around me because I would be role-playing in the Say channel, /Say,
Mm-hmm.
and they would start role-playing with me.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I wasn't dubbed as a geek or a weirdo, as I would have been in some other servers. There's not a lot of people that role play, but there are more than what you think. So I'm glad that the Tarnished Coats server is the unofficial role playing server, because then you get to meet people that like to role play with you, and you're not shunned for it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I know you told me about your great experience at finding people that roleplay. Was it the SOE guild that you were talking about?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out to these guys, and if you happen to listen to our podcast, please contact us, because I'd like to, talk to you guys about where you come up with your role-playing ideas, and maybe even have some of you guys on our show at some point to help tell our listeners about tips and tricks and ways to go about role-playing in Guild Wars 2. Yeah, the guild tag I know was SOE, and I know one of the players was an Asura, and her name was Miss Brix, or Brixie, Brix, maybe it was XXI, I can't remember. But they role-played like I'd never seen before. Like, they were in-depth, they were using emotes, they were making custom emotes to say things, and they were super extensive in it, like to the point where they would see like a portal in God Lost Waypoint or God Lost Swamp, and they would sit there and like analyze like you would if you were playing, say, like a D&D, and the DM says you see a portal on the horizon. Well, they physically in game saw a portal on the horizon, and they were like, I don't know, has anybody ever seen this? And like, I don't know what it is. And the Norn's like, well, we should go. There's only one way to find out. And they're role playing this whole thing. And I was there. And, I ran up and I was playing a guardian and I was dropping, healing and helping protect them. But I just was like, if they ask me anything, I'm gonna like be like, my character is mute because I couldn't compete with that.
Sort of like intimidated.
Yeah. Oh man, they were great.
Hmm.
But I would like, please, if you are a member of this SOE guild, we'd love to kind of form like, and you obviously were on Tarnished Coast, so we'd love to form like an alliance, if you will, with you guys and have you guys come and explain, how you do what you do and
Hmm.
how can we help to learn how to do that ourselves to help enrich your role playing experience while you help enrich ours.
Hmm.
So please reach out to us, SOE. So yeah, I guess the very last thing before we kind of talk about next episode and wrap things up is the finale, which is going to be pretty much a one-sided conversation because Naveen went to sleep.
Oh, I was tired. And during our time, it was, what, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning?
3 o'clock. Yeah, it was 2 o'clock was when it started. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the listeners who don't know, I have a toddler at home, so there's no way that I'm gonna stay up that late knowing that I have to take care of a baby the next morning. So I
Yeah.
did not, unfortunately, stay for that, but I heard that it wasn't the best that they could come up with for, the last beta weekend.
I mean, it was a very, very fun event, and it was epic in what it was. For those of you who don't know, it's called the Hunger Royale, which is obviously taking the Hunger Games and Battle Royale and mushing them together.
Hmm.
And it basically was those two games where it was all about, scavenging. Everybody had a rifle. Everybody had, like, the pirate outfit, town clothes, and aviator sunglasses. You were put in Metrica Province, which was completely cleared out of all enemies and all everything. And it was split into 4 teams, the red, blue, green, and gold teams. And what you did is you had like a practice mode at the beginning where there was no death penalty for dying to get a hang of how it worked. And you had a rifle, which you had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skills, and they were all different than, they had like hit people with a rifle and shoot a slow moving exploding flame shot and 5 shots in a row and whatever else. I think they had jump shot as well.
Mm.
And then you had 6 was eat rations, 7, and then you had like 7 was drop explosive rations. You had an invisibility, you had a wall of reflection, and if you found the 10th, the elite skill, it was like a teleport, like lightning blast one.
Hmm.
And what happened was you only had limited ammunition in your gun, so if you shot all of your ammunition, all you had left was the rifle butt,
Mm.
and you have to go scavenge and find ammunition on the ground. And you only had healing or eating rations, which would give you health back. And people could drop the exploding rations, which look to like normal rations to you, but when you pick them up, then they blow up and do damage to you.
Right.
So the final, the practice session ends, and now you have constant degen, and it was because you were succumbing to the hunger, which I thought was funny because I thought of the hunger from Guild Wars 1, but also play on Hunger Games.
Right.
So you were succumbing to the hunger, and you had constant health degen. So the only way for you to heal yourself was to use these rations, but you had to find them. If you didn't have any already, and you fought anybody, you'd probably die, and then you'd run out of health.
Right.
So you'd be running around trying to find this stuff, and there was no death penalty for a little while when you started, and eventually it got to the point where you died. And after that like kind of change ended,
Hmm.
then you would come back as a helper golem.
Hmm.
And you could run around and drop ammunition for people. You could ping everybody on the map. It's an enemy team. And you could also develop a wall of reflection to reflect attacks back so you could kind of help out your teammates that were still alive.
Right.
And I know we had a couple situations where like we'd follow an enemy and they'd shoot and we'd reflect it back, but then they would reflect it back at us, and you could probably kept like a game of Pong going if you had enough people.
Hmm.
But eventually it was found out that if you used a tonic or a box of fun and then you used that, you'd turn into whatever it was, and then if you left the transformation, you'd come back as yourself, but you'd come back as yourself without health degen anymore.
Oh, that's kind of bugged.
But you couldn't do anything. You couldn't like you coming back didn't increase the number of like people still playing.
Hmm.
If you looked at the status, all it said was the people that were still, in it with the negative health degen.
Oh,
So like your goal was to find these people whose health was constantly going down, essentially, and kill them. But how are you going to find them once other people started to figure out you could use tonics?
right.
So I don't know, but like if people had a box of fun and you dropped it, then like that worked for the whole team.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, it was fun and it was epic, and it could easily be a event, like an event or even a PvP game type that they add in. I would one recommend you make it a smaller map because Metrica, it was all of Metrica province. So you could be down to less than half health just exploring to try to find an enemy before you even run into anybody with constant health degen.
Right.
But my personal opinion, and I know people will disagree and people will agree, is that it was epic, yes, and really cool, and thank you, ArenaNet, for taking the time to do these awesome things. But I don't think it should have been the final event. I think you have dragons. I think the corrupted event with Kralkatorrik and all that stuff should have been the final event because it was more dragon related
Right.
and would have got more people pumped for release, I think, than just like a random PvP event that probably won't have anything to do with the actual game. But like we mentioned before, the Sylvari can't be corrupted by Kralkatorrik, so they wouldn't have worked in that if that was the final event.
Right.
Whereas this one didn't matter what profession you were or what race you were.
Hmm.
Ooh, sorry. And I think something more dragon related / possibly story related. I mean, the fact that they could take the time to create an event like this period was awesome,
Hmm.
and I loved it. Oh, and also I should point out that they got rid of the glitch where people would waypoint out and then not become corrupted and then waypoint back in like they did in the last beta.
Ah,
But yeah, if you try to do that now, it would say you will be permanently, you will not be allowed back into this area.
okay, so you couldn't do it.
You could waypoint out, but you couldn't get back in.
Right.
So,
So if you wanted in the fun,
yep, you had to
don't
play by
leave.
the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool. But like I said, I think like it would have been cool to fight like a mini dragon, or even if they made up a dragon, or they're like, oh, let's fight Glint, because they already had Glint, and what that's Guild Wars 1 related, but let's have Glint come in and you fight Glint.
Mhm.
Or they make up, Johnny Sparkles, the Rainbow Dragon of Doom, and you fight that, but just to fight something like on a huge scale,
Yeah.
or even like a bunch of mini dragons, just something to like story related, or lore related.
Yeah.
I feel
Mhm.
like the corrupted one was lore related, so that that's presumably what happens.
Mhm.
So, oh, excuse me, that would be a good idea, I thought, but oh well,
Oh well.
it's over and done with, and you know what? There won't be another one because the game will be out.
Permit play.
Yeah, and I mean it's awesome because this weekend it was kind of like bittersweet because you'd be doing all this stuff and be like, oh man, this is so cool. I did this, this, and this, and at the end of it, that character's gone.
Yeah.
Like the other events, there was a possibility your character would have stayed.
Yeah. So I wasn't. To me, the last beta weekend was more of a, yeah, okay, it's my Guild Wars 2 fix, but
Hmm.
I'm not really that interested because I know that everything that I'm doing during this weekend is basically going to get wiped.
Yeah,
I would have explored more into like world versus world,
hmm
but other than that, I mean,
yeah.
it's nice to be able to play the Asura and Sylvari, but
Hmm.
they just get deleted.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, Naveen, you want to talk about our guest for Thursday a little bit? I mean, we kind of talked about it a little, but just to remind everybody what the plan is.
Well, basically, we're going to have David from Guild Wars 2 worldversusworld.com, and he's going to talk to us about who he is and what, the website is about, and about one special project that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in, and that's the Profession Workshop.
Hmm.
but I won't elaborate on that because it's just going to be, double the details on this show.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah,
we're gonna call that the David Show,
yeah.
just like the Bridger Show.
Just like the Bridges show and the Ala Cardelina show.
Yeah, exactly. So that's gonna be recorded next Thursday, so the episode should be out on Friday.
Yeah, that's this Thursday. So less than
Yeah,
2 days from now.
yeah, 2 days from
Um,
now.
so if you guys go to Guild Wars 2 World versus World.com and you have any questions based on that, please submit us your questions. Or if you have any questions World versus World related, changes between the beta, you're a PvEer and you're, thinking about getting started in World versus World, but you're nervous and don't know what to think, and you'd like to get opinion from like a quote expert PvP guy or World versus World guy, please submit us your questions. Send them to hosts at chroniclesofteria.com or post them on our YouTube channel or Facebook wall, forums, whatever, so we can, ask those questions for you and try to get them answered.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you go to our forums, you can check out some of the screenshots we had from in-game stuff. Other than that, Naveen, unless you have anything else, I think we'll pretty much wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up because we're coming close to a 2-hour show, which is our
Holy
longest show
crap.
ever.
Oh my god, and this time oh man. And last night it wasn't even this long, and we didn't have a structure, and this time we did. And
And
here
it
we
was structured, yeah. Sorry, guys. Well, you've been listening this long. I guess we're not boring.
yeah, well, you might have to do some editing.
Not even. There's not a lot of editing to do.
Yeah, I don't think so, but just take a look
I
on the
will.
All right. Well, yeah, a 2-hour show. All right, let's close this up then.
Yep.
I actually can feel my throat getting a little sore from talking so much.
Yeah, and that's why we've been yawning so much too.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I kind of monopolized this conversation because like I look at our show notes and it's like here's Naveen's piece, and then this is like all the stuff that I want to talk about.
Well, you've explored the beta more than I have.
Yeah,
I would have liked to spend a little bit more time and explore, all those neat stuff, but I unfortunately couldn't.
blame Aaron. It's all his fault.
Yeah. Why aren't you here with me? Because he makes the moonies.
Yeah, exactly. Must be nice.
Yep.
Anyway, all right. Well, I get for episode number 9, beta weekend number 3 wrap up. Aren't you glad we didn't do a lore piece? We would be at 3 hours at this point. I am Lagwyn,
I'm Naveen.
and we'll see you next time. So, if you're ready, me.
And we'll make a whole 15 cents out of that video.
God, I love it.
We're going to be rich.
Oh, so rich. And we buying Steel Series equipment for everybody.
With 15 cents.
Just giving it out for freeze. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. Hello and welcome everyone to episode number 9.